Hello there, folks. A stuck record doesn't even come close to describing Nadine Dorries. Despite being reprimanded by the Privileges Committee for her blatant interference into their investigation into Boris Johnson, Dorries returned to the airwaves of Talk TV on Friday evening to double down on her criticism of the committee. What is there left to say about Nadine Dorries? She is a disgrace. She resigned during a tantrum over not being given a peerage, but later confirmed she hasn't actually yet officially resigned, and she won't until she gets an explanation as to why she was shunned from entering the House of Lords. It actually transpires her children are on her payroll, so it is believed they talked her out of throwing in the towel for now. She has now missed the deadline to resign in order for a by-election to take place before the summer recess. So unfortunately, we are stuck with her for the time being. I know a couple of people who live in Flitwick in mid-Bedfordshire, Nadine Dorries' constituency, and they genuinely cannot recall the last time they heard of Nadine Dorries doing anything for a constituent. She remains a dead duck and will likely do so up until the next general election, taking taxpayers' money whilst doing absolutely no work and impugning Parliament in the process. Now, in this clip, Nadine is going to speak from her throne in Cloud Cuckoo Land, where she is very much the Queen. But thankfully, Matthew Stadlen isn't having any of it. Unfortunately, first we have to listen to Nadine Dorries ranting and raving delusional rubbish before her guests can get a word in edgeways. Let's take a look.
So, yes, I mean, interesting. I haven't had a chance to read the report myself just yet, and what I find absolutely bizarre about the 7 of us who are mentioned in this report, from my perspective, I think they've jumped the shark on this one, and it's utterly bizarre. I'm not going to go into the details of it. I'm not sure many people are actually following it that much that they know the details of it. But I do think this, and I'd be really interested in what both of you think. I think the Privileges Committee, you know my thoughts. You know my thoughts on how the Privileges Committee conducted itself, on its finding, on how they changed the terms of reference, on how the person who led the Conservative part of the inquiry was actually just, when it reported, discovered to have attended a full and proper party during lockdown, who guided and led the younger Conservative members on the panel. We know that, the chair tweeted out 3 times that Boris was guilty before the panel sat. All of that aside, I think that what we saw in this Privileges Committee, and what I'm being criticised for, is that MPs, do you remember, Justine, in 2009, we had the expenses crisis. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, they had to introduce IPSA. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, lay people and professionals were brought in to handle the MPs' expenses crisis. And there have been no problems since. I think we've got to a point now where this Privileges Committee has distorted so much the process that takes place in the House of Commons that actually what we need now is that MPs can no longer mark their own homework or their own individuals. I think most MPs are just too steeped in this Westminster bubble, are slightly too up themselves, really need to get their big girl and boy pants on because they published a report complaining about what people have said about what they did. And I think the time has come now when, just like over the expenses crisis, we need to bring in properly qualified legal people to sit on a committee such as this, lay people, members of the public who are actually in touch with public opinion and real life to sit. And then we know that there is no distortion, no corruption, no political interference, because it is impossible for anyone to believe that there is not political interference which takes place when these committees sit. So that's my point of view. Matthew, I'm going to go to Matthew first just for the balance.
Listen,
what's your point of view?
I've got a lot of respect for you. I watched your interview with Piers Morgan, actually, and how you talked about the importance of heavy lifting in the House of Lords and how important it is for there to be people from working class backgrounds in the House of Lords. I respect that you came up from quite challenging circumstances to reach a position of prominence in British politics. So all of that I support. your politics and the way that you are continuing to undermine what is actually an important plank in our democracy, I fundamentally reject and disagree with, and find quite shocking that you are prepared, despite now 2 privileges committee reports, finding against you and what you stand for, that you are doubling down in such an extraordinary manner. This is your show, and I don't have a problem with that necessarily. David Lammy has his own show on LBC, so I'm not one of those people who's coming from an echo chamber and saying Nadine shouldn't have her own show.
I'm glad to hear that.
But you are marking your own homework now, so let me try and help redress the balance a little bit. You haven't read the report. I have been having a look at the report, thanks to your producers. And this is not just a tweet, because you said you just put a couple of tweets out on your very own TV show on the 23rd of March, 2023. Amongst other things, you accuse this Privileges Committee,
I knew I shouldn't have done this show,
which is a democratic means for Parliament to hold itself to account. You said they changed the rules.
They did.
Lowered the bar and inserted the vague term reckless into the terms of reference. Now, this is the key line. Boris Johnson will be found guilty by this kangaroo court. You were prejudging your colleagues who are representing us.
Well, I was right, Matthew. I was right.
No one in the House of Commons voted against this process. Not one single vote, as far as I understand it. You didn't like what you thought this committee would find, and so therefore you sowed the seeds of doubt amongst the wider population, and you undermined a democratic institution.
Well, I don't think that's the case, Matthew, because I was right. I knew exactly. And, you have to ask yourself, how did I know on the 23rd of March I was right? Of course I knew, because they did change the terms of reference and they did lower the bar. They inserted in, for the first time ever, into the terms of reference, the word reckless, which was utterly bizarre. And the reason why they did that was because they knew under the existing bar by which somebody would be judged, they couldn't find him guilty. They lowered the bar in order to be able to do that with this spurious word, this spurious accusation of reckless, despite the fact that our Director General in the Civil Service, despite the fact that all the key advisors in number 10, before Boris Johnson came to the dispatch box, including Sue Gray, advised him to go in and say what he said. He was then accused of recklessly misleading the House.
Say you were right. What you were doing was anticipating that they would find Boris Johnson not guilty because it wasn't a court of law, but they would find that he had deliberately misled Parliament, and so you prepared us for it in order to undermine its authority. This was unprecedented. What they found.
Well, they've actually said themselves that it had no impact on their findings.
Yes, and thank goodness for that. They didn't give in to the bullying campaign that I would suggest went on.
So, Matthew, there was no campaign. I have to say, no, there was no. This idea of a coordinated is actually bizarre, and it's paranoia.
Fine.
It's actually bizarre and paranoid.
You may well be right.
They totally jumped the shark.
Bullying.
There was no coordinated campaign.
If it wasn't bullying, it was a deliberate attempt on your part, on Jacob Rees-Mogg's part, and so forth, to undermine what they would conclude. And let's just remember what they concluded, because this is really important. I'm sure Justine, who, like you, was an MP for a long time. You've been an MP for 18 years. You work hard with a big majority to serve your constituents. This should matter to you as a Democrat. They found that our Prime Minister...
That's why it matters to me.
They found that our Prime Minister, not once, but on multiple occasions, had deliberately misled Parliament. That is unprecedented. This report is unprecedented. The finding of levels of interference.
It is unprecedented. I'm going to have to bring Justine in. It is unprecedented. And I think the big question is why? Why is it unprecedented? What on earth is going on? Justine.
Very quickly, you used the word corruption in relation to this committee. You also talked about Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Well, I used it in relation to corruption of democracy.
In a conversation about this committee. And you also said that Sir Bernard Jenkins, one of your colleagues, was leading his, in your words, I think, junior colleagues.
Advising.
This is really damaging stuff. There is no conspiracy. There's no witch hunt. Boris Johnson repeatedly deliberately misled Parliament. There were 4 Conservative MPs on this committee.
Well done, Matthew Stadlen. He did a great job there. Just holding her to account, and Parliament must do likewise. She's stealing a living. By all means, step down as an MP and carry on harping about how unfair it all is on your crappy TV show. But you cannot do both. Just look at this, by the way. Have a look at this. This is Nadine Dorries' voting record for 2023. She has cast a vote in Parliament only 6 times. 6. And 5 of those were on the same day, when I believe Conservative MPs had a 3-line whip to vote down Labour amendments to their crappy illegal migration bill. So that is bad enough. But for somebody with such a big gob when it comes to slagging off her colleagues and trashing Parliament on Talk TV, and for somebody who is quite the keyboard warrior when it comes to slagging off her colleagues and trashing Parliament on Twitter, how many spoken contributions do you think Nadine Dorries has made in any context in the House of Commons in 2023? Yep, that's right. 0. Not a dicky bird. Her last contribution was when she was still a minister, answering topical questions. Almost a year ago. The 7th of July 2022 was the last time she spoke in the House of Commons. She is a complete and utter waste of space. Even Lee Anderson has made 42 spoken contributions in the House of Commons in 2023. Brendan Clark-Smith has made 32. And even the disgraced Boris Johnson, who I'm surprised had the nerve to show his face around the place, he's made 12. What is she doing? What are we paying her for? So anecdotally, I've heard she's doing nothing for her constituents, and she's certainly contributing nothing in the House. What is the point of this person? Okay, so she may not be contributing to Parliament, but is she even bothering to turn up anymore? There are no specific rules demanding MPs must attend the Commons, so she might not even be turning up, ever. It's a disgrace. What she is doing is a disgrace. And even when we thought we were about to get rid of her, when she resigned, she then unresigned. Anyway, I'm off. I need to lie down. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me out immensely. And I read all your comments, so please contribute anything you like, within reason, of course. Let's all calm down here, everyone. Alright, thanks folks. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you again soon.